Today, we're diving into a pretty wild idea. What if your actions have less to do with your beliefs or your willpower and way more to do with the invisible structures all around you? Let's get into it.
So, here's a question that probably hits close to home, right? Why do we do things that go against what we say we believe? You believe in saving money, but then you make that impulse buy. You want to eat healthy, but there's the donut. What is going on with this gap between what we think and what we do?
The usual answers are always the same, aren't they? We just tell ourselves, oh, I just need more willpower, or I guess I wasn't motivated enough. We think the solution is to somehow persuade our brains to finally get with the program.
But what if that whole way of thinking is just wrong? The source material for this explainer puts it pretty bluntly. That assumption, the one that says we need to be persuaded to act, it's false.
This brings us to what the author calls the persuasion illusion. It's this deep-seated idea we all have that to change someone's behavior, even our own, you first have to change their mind. But it turns out that might just be an illusion.
I mean, think about it. The reality is our behavior changes all the time without some big internal debate. We do things differently without our core beliefs changing at all. A lot of the time, we can't even explain why we did what we did. We definitely don't feel like we were influenced by some brilliant argument. It just happened.
And here's the key. This isn't a moral failing. It's not you being weak. It's not some bug in your brain that makes you irrational. The answer is something else entirely. It's architecture. So let's get into this new framework. It's called structural cognition, and it gives us a completely different way to look at why we do the things we do.
Okay, I know, that sounds super technical, but the core idea is actually really simple and kind of mind-blowing. Think of your brain like a city's road system. Your behavior, where you end up, isn't just about where you want to go, it's about the actual roads available, the amount of traffic, the roadblocks, the detours. It's the final output of a whole system working in a real environment.
So what this means is that by the time you actually see a behavior, whether it's your own or someone else's, it's just the end result. It's the last domino to fall. The real reasons, the things that truly caused it, have already happened deep inside the system. The action you see is the only one that could have happened, given the structure at that moment. Now, to really get this, you have to know that our minds basically have two modes. First, there's exploratory mode. Think of this as you just casually wandering through a bookstore. You're open, you're relaxed, you're just seeing what looks interesting. But then, the fire alarm goes off. Instantly, you switch into directive mode. Your focus narrows to just one thing: get out. You're not exploring anymore. You're looking for the fastest, most obvious path to the exit. Our behavior is totally different depending on which mode we're in.
So the big question is, what causes that switch? What kicks us out of that open, curious state and into that tunnel vision, action-oriented one? The answer comes down to one simple concept: load.
And we have to be really clear here. Load isn't just feeling stressed or being emotional, even though those can be part of it. Load is the total demand being put on your brain's processing power in any given moment.
So what does this load actually look like in real life? Well, it's things like trying to solve a really complex problem, being on a tight deadline, feeling uncertain about what's going to happen next, worrying about what other people think of you, or even just having to make a ton of little decisions one after another. All that stuff piles on the load.
And here you can see the chain reaction perfectly. Step 1, the load goes up. Maybe your boss moves up a deadline. Now your brain's number one priority isn't creativity, it's stability. It has to find a stable footing, and fast. So it switches to directive mode, because that's the fastest path to a stable solution. And boom! Just like that, your behavior changes. Not because you were persuaded, but because the system stabilized itself.
Okay, so now we can start connecting the dots and see how the world around us, the structure, plugs directly into this system and changes what we do, usually without us even realizing it.
This is where it gets really cool. The environment you're in isn't just some passive background. It's an active part of your thinking process. Changing the context literally changes which mental roads are lit up and which actions even seem possible in that moment.
And this is why defaults are so incredibly powerful. The pre-checked box on a form or the route your GPS always suggests, they aren't just little suggestions. They are well-lit, pre-paved highways for your brain.
And what's so fascinating is how this flips the script on our behavior. When you're under pressure and you just go with the default option, that's not you being lazy. That's your brain being incredibly efficient. It's taking the easiest, most obvious path to conserve energy. It's just smart.
It's the same deal with whatever is most salient, whatever stands out the most. Picture a web page with a huge flashing Buy Now button. When you're under load, your brain doesn't have the spare capacity to read all the fine print. That big, bright flashing signal doesn't just grab your attention, it basically becomes the only road available. It dictates your next move.
And this right here is the heart of it. When a change in the context or the defaults or what's salient changes what you do, your mind wasn't persuaded of anything, it was just rerouted.
So let's pull all this together. The really big shift we have to make is to stop thinking so much about influence and start thinking about architecture.
So what's the real difference here? Well, traditional explanations are good at describing what happens. They'll tell you, oh, people tend to choose the default option. But structural cognition tells you why it has to happen that way. Because the system is under load and it's looking for the most efficient, stable path. One is just a description, the other is the actual cause.
And that brings us to the single most powerful idea in this whole explainer. Behavior is not a direct printout of your beliefs or a measure of your willpower. It's simpler and more profound than that. It is your internal cognitive architecture made visible.
And so that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If our behavior is really just a reflection of the structures we're inside of, our apps, our offices, our social circles, then take a look around. What are the invisible architectures that are shaping your actions right now? You might be surprised by what you find.